Hey everyone, welcome and thanks for tuning in. We are the Dharma Collective, a group of coaches trained and certified in all things Dharma. What it is, how you know it, find it, live it, be it. We offer this podcast to you in alignment with our own Dharmas.
I am one of your many co-hosts, Jessica Schneider, coming to you from the middle of the beautiful French countryside. And I'm very excited to chat with my colleagues and my soul sisters here about what sets our souls on fire.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Quan McNeil. I reside in Maryland in the U.S. And I am excited to work with this collective group of beautiful spirits to bring about our gifts and have discussion.
Hey all, so I am Daniela Varga. I am signing in from Hungary, and I am very excited about the podcast and the episode also because it's always exciting to meet fellow beautiful people who think the same way about Dharma as me, which for me is authenticity, but we will dive into that. But first, our beautiful Ola.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ola Satya, and right now I'm tuning in from Poland, but I live permanently in Spain. And as an expat for already 14 years, I'm beyond excited to share this podcast with so many different people, different nation, and different ideas of the same thing, which is Dharma. So tune in for our explanation of each and unique Dharma.
All right, ladies. So let's talk about Dharma. When we think about Dharma, what is a word that comes to mind? Just one word for each of you.
I'd have to say for me, it's fire. It's
Okay.
it's the thing that just sets my soul, my heart, everything on fire, lights that fire under my ass. Like it's what propels me forward.
For me, it's home. It's home, coming back to who I am, where it's safe, where it's me, where it's no reason to change myself in any way. But I feel very comfy and also excited to just be.
I love this definition of just going back home. That's so beautiful. For me, Dharma is just feeling free. It's just this liberation to be who you really are without any masks, without any roles in this society that we have been like learning since we were kids. So it's just this full permission to be your authentic self.
I think of an onion because to get to your Dharma, you have to peel back the layers of everything that you ladies said. You have to remove your limiting beliefs. You have to redefine who you are. You have to look deeper into yourself. Sometimes an onion gets a little rotten and a little soft, and that is us cleaning out or purging of the things that we were taught by our parents, family members, society. We have to be open, right? So when you start to cut an onion, it kind of opens or it blooms. We have to be open to learning new things, have to be open-minded to receiving and letting go.
Yeah, I would say that absolutely. It feels like peeling the onion. And it feels like we have so much conditioning that it's really a hard job to get to our Dharma. But like very reassuring is that we already know what it is. We just don't remember that. And we need to help ourselves remember. And it's so, so beautiful because right now we are like very used to like the career, to just choose the major in school, university that will bring us a good job, stable money, income. And we actually never ask ourselves what we like. So I found myself like after high school being there, not knowing what to do with myself. Okay, I knew what I don't like, but I didn't know what I do really like. And I feel like just pursuing our Dharma, it's not only our career, but it's like such a huge part of just starting to do what really excites you. And like Jessica said beautifully, really what like set your soul on fire and like gives you this motivation to just wake up every day and do everything with so much excitement. And the results are so much better when you do it not out of obligation, but just because you feel like doing it and it's really inspiring you.
Yeah, and I think that's the really beautiful, like I want to say, like opposition of Dharma and today's, let's say, today's job choosing ways that we actually think that we have to choose jobs to make money and to make a lot of money. So usually the most prominent factor in a decision making when we choose careers is how much money will I make with this. But the very, very, like, I want to say ironic thing that if we would stick to our Dharma, what lights us up and what brings us joy, we would make so much more money at the end, because this is what is actually destined for us. And this is what our souls wants us to do. And of course it will, I want to say with air quotes, reward us with abundance and creativity and fire, as Jessica said, like all these things that are ingredients to an abundant life. Because guess what, will you be making more money in something that you actually truly enjoy and want to pursue it in a lot of different ways, a lot of creative ways, or in a job that is actually, I don't know, you hate and tiring you out, and you do the bare minimum and just want to get through the day and do anything else.
Daniela, you bring up a good point, and so do you, Ola. When we look at success, we define success by what society and our parents taught us, right? So I'll share a story with you. In 2023, I was laid off from my dream job, what I felt was my dream job. And I never asked myself before that what I wanted to do with myself. I always said, what do I want to be? What do I want to do when I grow up, right? And my mother put me in healthcare. So I've been in healthcare for 28 years now. And I got laid off from my dream job that I had worked at for 9 years. And I could have allowed for that to pivot me into a spiral from a mental health perspective. But what I did was I took that time to figure out who I was, right? So I knew who I was as a mother, a daughter, a matriarch, a sister, but I didn't know who I was to myself. I knew I was being authentic to myself in some ways, but not fully authentic to myself. So really setting and beginning to question these things and ask myself some very hard questions. Was my dream job, or was it because I set a goal to make a certain income and I made it? But was that really my goal, or was that society's goals or definition of success? Having my home and having, certain things that society defines as successful. Is that really how I define my success, right? And beginning to dive in to redefining success, redefining myself, because I also realize, you always see that those memes that go, you can't pour from an empty cup, that I was pouring out to a lot of people and I wasn't giving to myself, but I was always telling people that, you need to pour into yourself, right? But I wasn't really doing it. And so being able to sit for a year and 2 months in redefining myself, applying for jobs and not having the opportunity, doing interviews but not getting a job, gave me time to really sit and ground myself, to look at myself, to reflect on myself. And I know that people don't always get that opportunity. And when they do, they go into panic. And I get it, because you all bring up a good point. We have to make money. We're not in a bartering system anymore where if I say I have 2 rocks and you have 1, let's make a trade, right? You have some type of money for exchange has to occur. And I really sat with myself and said, okay, I've made a very good salary, but is that what I need to be happy and truly sustain? Can I take a pay cut and do something that makes me happy? Not going, I need to make a certain figure and I should have this and I should have all these things. And I'm happy surfacely, but internally, I'm battling with, this really isn't me. This really isn't authentic to me. And so in doing that, I traveled to Bali and found I call her my sister. She's in an Asian country, and she introduced me to the Dharma way, because she was going to take the training once we returned from teaching. And so when I look at being authentic to yourself, it's important to remember that there's a lot of shedding and purging of old that has to happen to get to the core of who we authentically are, from a physical and a spiritual realm.
Yeah. Juan, what you say is just, it's so beautiful, and I think it's so true. And I love the example of an onion, right? Because I think that if we were all raised in a way where we were taught what feels good to you, what feels true to you, what excites you, follow that, we would have such a different world. Because I think, Daniela, to your point, you probably would be making a lot more money or be more successful, or however you want to look at that term, if what you do excites you, right? Ignites you. Because I think many of us have had the experience of being in a job and grinding, but not really going through the motions, but not actually feeling like you're all in and you're passionate about it. And there's a certain energy about somebody that is doing any kind of thing with passion, with desire, with excitement, versus out of just kind of obligation and kind of in stagnancy and just like, I got to do this because, this is just what people do, right? I mean, how many times we go, this is just life, this is just what people do, kind of in a very like unconscious way of living. And I think it's really interesting because after a certain point, we pick the job or we do the thing, and then we don't really question why anymore, right? Because I feel like at a certain point, society says like, okay, like when you're a little kid, you can say like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or we actually don't really ask, who do you want to be? That's the more important question to me. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be authentic? Do you want to be true to you? Do you want to be whatever it is? We don't ask that. We ask, what do you want to do? And this is how we define ourselves, right? We define ourselves by our career or what it is that we, quote unquote, should be doing. For me, I'm an attorney. I'm not working as an attorney right now, but I'm an attorney. And, my whole life, my family said to me, because I was, argumentative or good at speaking or whatever it was. And so from the time that I was a very little girl, they were like, oh, you should be a lawyer. Jessica should be a lawyer. My dad legit used to like write, like on like the paper bag lunches, he used to write on there, like Jessica E. Shulruff, Esquire, which is like lawyer, like in the United States. I was 8. So like you can imagine, well, my parents are like super supportive and will never push me really into anything, but that kind of underlying messaging and programming sort of gets stuck in there. And I found myself living a life as a nonprofit lawyer, mind you. I made it my own. I said, well, I want to help people. This is my passion. And it was for a while, but really having a life where it looked like, on paper, everything looks good. And I should be feeling good because I'm doing a job that helping people. I'm making a decent wage, like not living large, like one of those, like, like corporate lawyers, but I'm okay. And I was, doing all the yoga. I didn't have kids yet, so I was fully rested and all the things. And yet there was this kind of like stagnancy. I'm like, I remember one day thinking, I was sitting in my office and I remember thinking one day, like, I slept well, I'm exercising, I'm eating right. Like I feel like I'm doing all of the things. So what is it that's missing? What is it that's missing? Like, why do I feel like there's just something off? And for me, I feel like that is often a sign that you are living out of alignment with your Dharma, with what it is that you're really should be doing or what lights you up. And I will say that at one point, I really believe that doing the kind of work that I was doing as a nonprofit lawyer was my Dharma. And I did really feel lit up by it. And if you would have asked me, oh, if you won the lottery, what would you want to do? I would have said, oh, I would still do this because I love it so much. But then at one point that no longer became true. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to pivot, as like full-blown adults with careers or whatever it is, unless like, for example, Kwan, like you're given the opportunity, kind of not of your own choosing, at least in the beginning, right? But like that was an opportunity, although we don't always tend to see losing your job as an opportunity. But, yeah, I just feel like we're afraid to question and we're afraid to pivot. Because, you've done the thing. You've done the thing. You've chosen the career. You've gotten the accomplishments. You've went to school. You've done all the things. So like, that's what you've chosen. And so why pivot more? And I think it is because of that inner feeling of feeling like what's not there, what doesn't feel right. And I guess my question is, why are we taught to ignore ourselves so much?
Well, if we look at, you bring up something, I want to piggyback. You bring up something that we don't also think about, right? We get that nudge, but then we go, if I quit my job, how am I going to pay my bills? I need to work. I have to I have to make money, right? And then it becomes, well, and I'll say, for your example, if I'm no longer Esquire, then what will people think, right? So if I'm not a lawyer, if I'm not a doctor, whatever your job is, if I'm not in corporate America, I don't care if you're the trash man, but I'm not working, then what will people say? If I take a job, let's just say you want to be a greeter at Walmart, right? And that makes you happy. It may not be the same amount of money, but that really makes you happy to greet people and put a smile on people's face. And I just bring that up. You want to be a greeter somewhere, work in a coffee shop, but we always go to what will people think? Or what will society think? Or how will it never goes to what I feel. It's always what someone's going to think, or what is someone going to say, or I have to pay my bills, or my family needs, and you can plan it out. There can be a plan out, but even with the plan out, we still battle with the voice in our head and what's going to be said.
That is very true. And I just want to share a story. This ties in very nicely here. I just had actually two of my friends quitting their jobs, and they both decided to take a break before trying to find something new, because they realized that they actually don't know what they want to do with their lives. And the same reaction they got was basically shock from everyone. Like, you don't have anything lined up. Like, what will you gonna do? Like, how, what? And I realized we are so deeply connecting our own identity to our jobs that when that goes away, we don't know who we are anymore. And it's just something that you said, Jessica, that like when we are kids, we are always asked like what we want to do. And just think about it a minute. Like when you introduce yourself to someone, what is the first thing that you say about yourself? Hi, I'm Jessica, I'm a lawyer. Hi, I'm Daniela, I'm a marketer. So this is the first thing that we say about ourselves to someone who never heard us, who had never met us before. So this is basically how we define ourselves, what we are doing, not who we are. We never say like, I don't know, I'm Daniela, I love snowboarding or whatever, like never introduce ourselves this way. So, and this is again, like society, we live in a society where if you don't have a job, you are not valuable. You're basically not creating value, so you are not valuable. We don't know who we are if we are not working. And that is something very, very deeply ingrained today.
Yeah, but I feel like it's also not only about work, but it's also like if we, for example, like lose a relationship with someone, we also don't know who we really are without this other person because we always let something else define us. And this is this beautiful thing about Dharma, finding our own way, our own path that is authentic to us and it's unique. It's not going to be the same. Like we are four of us here that we've been through very similar situations, very similar process, but still we are so different. And that's very beautiful that no one else is going to live my Dharma. And like what you said about your friends, like it resonated so much because last year I took 6 months off from work, which happened to be then 14 months. But it was like everyone was asking, okay, if you are not happy with the job that you were having, I was working as a project manager in a huge international company in automotive industry. I was traveling, I was making decent money, but I felt so stuck. I kind of felt like I was in a cage, like my full potential couldn't be revealed, even though I had a huge responsibility and we were like doing like many $1 million projects. But still, like I felt that this is not for me. This is not where I shine. So I took this time off, and everyone else's reaction was like, if you want to change the job, just change it right away because it's so much easier to look for another job when you're working and they are going to see and they're going to give you like better payment conditions. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want the time to be with myself and just see what I really want to do. Like, you have only this time in this life, and you cannot just go there, as we say in Spanish, like, like a chicken without head, and just, without knowing where to go. Like, it's really so valuable to just stop and think about what you want. And like, I know that not everyone is going to have this like the super opportunity to just have like 6 months without working or whatever. We have loans, we have mortgages, we have people, we have children, but just finding this time during the workday to just dedicate it to yourself and just getting closer to who you really are and what you want. It's not about not working, because I feel like we talked about a lot that when we are not working, then people are talking and all that. I feel like it's not. It's about trying to work in what you love and just be of service and just sharing your gifts with everybody, because we all have those gifts. But sometimes they are so deep inside, like what Kwan said with the onion. We just need to peel off all this conditioning and what we think we are in order to get to our core and see what we really are. And I feel like it's can only be done by stillness and just being with yourself. I was traveling, like I said, I was expat for 14 years. I was traveling, like I think I have traveled to more than 50 countries because I was looking for my home. And like you, Daniela, said, Dharma is home for you. Until I just went to India and I started meditating and just be with myself, which at first was super scary and frightening. But this is when I said, I am home. There's nowhere else to look for. Everything is inside of me. So I feel like this is such a huge part. So we can just start being with ourselves.
That is so very true. Yeah, because you will chase home until eternity, until you realize that it is inside of you. And one thing that stuck out with me about what you said is that I kind of have the feeling, and also from what I experienced, that one of the things that is keeping people from being still is that they are so very afraid of what they will find inside. And that is very sad to me, because I know that what they will find inside is actually so beautiful and magical, and everyone is very, very unique. And this is what makes this world a very beautiful place. But so many of us actually don't know who they are and don't love that person. They are very much afraid of that person who is inside, because they think that that person won't be loved because they don't love that version of themselves. And this is actually how I found this path to Dharma, because when I was working in my marketing business with clients, we did these very great like marketing plans. We did strategies. We like really tailored everything to their uniqueness. And I still kept seeing that they are staying still. So they are not doing the things. They are not showing up online. They are still afraid of ask for the prices that they could ask for. And that's when it actually clicked for me. It's not about what is missing is not the fancy marketing plan or the clarity of which channel they should post and what. What is missing is actually the belief that they are worthy and deserving and capable of reaching all those goals that they have for their business. So the missing piece was self-love. And actually, this is how I realized, and also from my own experience, that like self-love is the first step to even thinking about building a business. Or I also really believe finding Dharma, because when you don't love yourself, it's very hard to believe that you are here for something much bigger than you are now thinking. Like someone who is dealing with anxiety and just self-loathing all day long won't really be thinking about questions like, how am I unique and what are my gifts and how can I serve the world? Like it's just not, there's just no capacity for that for someone like in that headspace.
Yeah, and for me, I think what was mentioned about people are afraid, right? That people are afraid to go inward and to kind of peel the layers of the onion. And of course, we know, Danielle, I love the way that you said, what you'll find there is beauty, what you find there is magic. But in order to get to the beauty and magic, also, we kind of have to traverse through some of our bullshit, basically. And that's just the reality of it. And the only way out is through. And I think that, I think also a lot about conscious parenting and the way that we're raised. And I think so often when we were hurting as children, what we were told is, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. Or here, have this piece of candy or whatever. We were constantly distracted and redirected away from our emotion and our feeling state. And so that basically created a whole bunch of adults, myself included, that, we're like, don't go there. You feel that, distract yourself with something else, turn on that movie, whatever it is, whatever's some people drink, some people smoke, some people do whatever it is. There's a million different addictions and different ways to distract yourself in this world. But whatever you do, don't turn inward, because who knows what you're going to find in there. But the reality is that that's where all the magic and the juice is. That's where you are. But you won't know who you are until you actually have the courage, because the path of self-love, the path of Dharma, the path of all these things, for me, honestly, is also, it's kind of like the path of the warrior, because you need to be prepared. And I don't mean that in like a battle, like hard. I just mean it in like, you need to say, okay, and have the courage to take on whatever it is that you find, but with love, And one of the things that I think, Daniela, you had mentioned is, we don't know who it is that we are unless we are being productive, unless we're producing. And I think that this is a huge byproduct of our capitalist society. I mean, it's not just an economic system, it's a cultural system, one in which we value ourselves by productivity. Even if I inherited a shit ton of money or was a trust fund baby or like won the lottery and I had all this money so I could justify to everybody, I don't need a job to work. But if I was just sitting on my ass all day long, people, one, I probably would feel bad about myself because I'm not being quote unquote productive, right? And maybe people might look at me funny. And it's interesting because for me, for a long time, I said, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. It's not like I just woke up one morning and was like, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore, and then just quit my job and like move to Europe, right? It was a long time. It was a plan. It was a realization. It was a working towards something else. I was peeling the layers of my own onion while continuing to practice law until finally I made the decision and moved and all these kinds of things. But then you think, sure, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. This doesn't feel true or right for me. But then to be confronted actually with the fact that, oh shit, so I'm not a lawyer anymore. And all these inner child things started coming up for me, like, I'm not impressive anymore. People aren't going to think I'm impressive anymore. Like, I'm not going to have, like, who am I? Like, who am I? Also, who am I without being quote unquote productive? And this is something that was also happening to me because I have a 2-year-old. And so I could go days feeling like I do nothing, even though I feel like I'm doing everything. And I think any toddler parent will sort of know what that feels like. But this idea where, like, who am I? What value do I have outside of these external things that define me? And there were a lot of ego deaths and a lot of, like, crying on the bathroom floor moments for me as I sort of wrestled all these things. And it's funny because I felt like, oh, I have self-confidence, like, I'm a confident person, I'm making this decision to, like, leave the law and have this different kind of life from, like, a place of confidence. But I realized that my confidence was, like, it's kind of like fake confidence, because it was confidence based on this projected image that I had of myself and what I believe other people to think of me. It wasn't confidence based on, like, this is who I am down to my very little onion core, like, I've peeled all the layers and this is me. This is authentic me. So we're talking about authenticity. Can I feel safe in my authenticity? And I think so many of us do not feel safe. It doesn't feel safe there because, as social creatures, as human beings we want to feel accepted and we want to feel loved, and we don't like feeling judged. And more importantly, we just judge ourselves a whole lot, probably a lot more than other people do. So I just feel like that's where the real meat is going and peeling through all those layers. And then once you find that authenticity of who it is that you really are, without the titles, without the needing to be, like, can I just be okay just being and not doing? Can I be comfortable in my beingness? Like Ola, you said, sitting still, because that is where the magic is ultimately.
Yeah, I want to kind of piggyback off of what Ola said about home, right? A lot of times we as human beings will stay in the home that we grew up in. So when I say home, meaning the country or the state, because we're afraid of something new, and or we're told, or conditioned that if you go to certain countries or if you go to certain areas within the country that you're in, that there are no, you're if you have a family, that you need to be around family to help with your family, right? And if you decide to do something that goes against the conditioning that we were raised in, and that is from a household condition to friends, family, work, education, you're looked at differently, right? You're looked at as kind of like a black sheep, like you're going against the grain, and you're not supposed to go against the grain. We do things this way. It's almost like we're all robots, right? We're born and we're supposed to be individuals, right? We have, some of us have red hair, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, and we're supposed to look in the mirror and embrace our individuality. But as we grow, we are then told, you're an individual, but you need to do these things as everyone else is doing, right? And so that's when the conditioning begins. You are supposed to hold your bottle at 6 months. You're supposed to be walking. You're supposed to say words at a certain time. You're supposed to, you're supposed to, you're supposed to. But we're not in a space where we can sit with ourselves, and not even just with work, but what is it that you want to do that maybe as a child you weren't able to do, right? So if it was a dance class, if it was an art class, if it was, parachuting, if it was traveling, some people have never left the country or the city that they live in because their families never left, right? So it's like, my family's never left. I'm afraid of this big world that's out there. Finding your Dharma is truly unthawing, because when we are born, we don't have these beliefs, we don't have these conditions, right? So what I like to say is the freeze begins, right? As we grow, the freeze begins. And over time, we have a choice. Jessica, Daniela, and Ola, you all said it. We have a choice where we can say to ourselves, who am I to me? What do I want? What do I like? No one ever says, it's always when you grow up, you're going to be, or when you grow up, you should go to college, you should get a job, or you should go to trade school. You should, you should, you should. If you say, I want to be a starving artist, quote unquote, because that's how artists usually are described in the US, then it's, well, how are you going to make money? People don't make money doing art, but art can bring someone joy and peace. I have a girlfriend who, she was a musician as a child, and she was told she couldn't be a musician as a child because she wouldn't make money. But what she now realizes is, as an adult going through her own mental health things, is that that music was her therapy, right? And it brought her joy and it made her happy. For me, being outside and getting my hands dirty in the dirt makes me happy. And am I a gardener? No, I kill a lot of plants. But home, going back into center, going back into self, unthawing what was stalled for. Sometimes people wake up at 20, sometimes people wake up at 30, sometimes people begin to wake up and then they go back to sleep because it's scary. Because finding your Dharma, you have to walk a lot of paths alone, and nobody tells you that. There is no roadmap to this, where for everything that we are told and taught and conditioned, there's some type of roadmap, right? For this, because we are all born and we are all different, there is no roadmap. What we do find is a collective group of beautiful people that we connect with and we can share. And some experiences we've gone through in finding our Dharma and unthawing, we connect with and we can talk about. And then sometimes it's kind of like, I haven't experienced that. So you put that in, I call it like your little lockbox. Why? Because at some point throughout this journey, it may come back up, and you can say, oh, well, Daniela told me when this happened that, this was her experience. So I do know someone who has experienced this. But if you go back to your family and you say, hey, I was sitting under a tree and I saw a vision, they're going, wait, what? Or I'm going to not, I'm going to parent differently. Part of Dharma, if you have children, is I'm not going to parent the way that I was parented. I'm going to parent differently. Now, these people out here have created all these fancy names for the new type of parenting that's happening, but it's not new. It's really just showing, loving your children and allowing them to be who they are, and not freezing them for them to unthaw themselves again, not trying your best not to give them the trauma that you endured, leading by the true example of what it is that we have experienced and don't want to repeat. I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, I think it said so beautifully. And actually, I'm super excited for all these people who are raising their kids in such a conscious way. And like you said, your friend who was an artist, and they were like, oh, you're not going to make money as an artist. Actually, I feel like our problem is that we actually don't believe that we can make money and might sustain ourselves living our dharmas. It's like, it's normal for people to work in something they don't like. It's like, it's so strange. Even lastly, like, my friend commented on that because we were talking about our different paths and all that. And she was like, I'm not working in something I don't like, but I like the stability. And like those who are actually making money on what they like, they are such a minority. And I'm like, why not to change that? Because I don't know if you figured it out. I'm sure, yes, because it's like so like palpable that when you are starting living your dharma, everything comes so effortlessly, so easy. Actually, it's a very hard path. And like what we said, I loved your analogy to robots because it feels like we are all unique, but then we are all programmed. Like right now, we could just share the sufferings and all the problems that we were going through in order to reach to this our onion core, and that would be very similar. very similar limiting beliefs, patterns, and all that. Because even though if we are different in different parts of the world, the conditioning has been very similar, very similar. So I feel like we are like this manufactured society that has these standards that we need to follow, and like trying to get out of it, it's seen very, very like weird, I would say, even. But just being with yourself, like feeling authentic, following your values, it what gives you strength in that. And not only strength, when you really are living by your values and following your dharma, these people will also come around, because they will see, you will make them see that it's possible. You will be this example, and actually you can inspire them as well. So it's so beautiful that your inner work is actually changing everything around you, and it's getting so much easier, and it's like so natural. It's like the whole universe is telling you, I want you to be your authentic self. I want you to live your dharma. And it really feels like being free. And I feel like even right now, with our coaching and all the problems that we are facing, it's still our mind talking. It's still our old conditioning that we need to continue on working on. But like our authentic self already knows this is the way. Just follow the path, and the path will, reveal itself. And someone very wise once said that everything that you want is on the other side of the fear. So really, I feel like not letting the fear like limit us anymore is the key. Because being like feeling stable, being in the same place, even if it's like giving you comfort, when you feel that something is missing, and Jessica was saying, something is not right, just follow this. And then the whole universe will kind of cooperate with you for you to find this and be living fully your dharma and what you're meant to do in this world and the society.
So beautifully said, Ola and Kwan, and also Jessica. Like, what I wanted to add in is connected to finding your dharma and finding your way back to you being hard. And I was just having a conversation with a friend. I had a decision situation, and she was sharing me with this, idea of basically being married is hard, being single is hard. Choose your heart. Being someone else and being authentic, both are hard. Choose your heart. Like no side of the coin is easy, but I rather choose my heart as dharma, as authenticity, as finding out who I am, because at least on those side of the coin, I get the chance to experience a life that is truly meant for me, where I can be myself, where I can really shine and be magnetic and just enjoy this life, which my soul actually came here to do. Like, my soul didn't came here to grind away in a 9-to-5 job that I hate for 10 or 12 hours a day and be in a relationship where I feel like shit, or be around people who put me down, or just wasting, quote unquote, wasting this life away. It came here to experience all the beautiful ways I can experience myself. So, and it should feel joyful, it should feel fun, it should feel playful, but along the way, for all the reasons that we talked about here, the conditioning, the fears, the beliefs, we were taught everything that is coming through, and they come for a reason. Like, I really want to emphasize that nothing that we learn along the way is wasted, because those are also soul lessons that we needed to learn to really experience who we are. Because again, to know who you are, you also need to know who you are not. And for me to know how to love myself, I needed to experience what it's like if I don't love myself, because one doesn't work without the other. Because if I'm just born loving myself, like I don't even realize that I love myself because it's just natural to me. The heart that we are talking about here, connected to Dharma, is a beautiful heart. Is a heart that you want in your life, you want to experience in your life, and it will lead you to elevations that you can't even experience, can't even imagine right now. That's for sure.
So to close out, for me, authenticity is feeling the freedom to be me no matter where I am or who I'm with. It's the unmasking. It's not feeling like I need to wear a mask. It's just being me.
For me, authenticity means the unthawing of self to get to your truth and removing the limit beliefs that we were taught and creating your own, coloring outside the lines and outside of the box.
For me, authenticity is letting my inner self shine through. It's such a different person that Ola is usually. Like, it's so beautiful, and you can see it when you go to some retreat and people are in like deep meditation and like purgation process, and then you are not talking to them, you are talking to their souls, and they are beautiful and pure, and that's the most beautiful thing in the world. So this is what authenticity means to me.
To me, it means knowing myself and loving that person unconditionally and showing that person to others without fear. And that will actually, what you also said, Ola, like that will actually enable others to also be themselves. So that is why authenticity is so powerful, because when you meet someone who is authentic, you are unconsciously drawn to that person, because deep down we all want to be that way. We all just want to be ourselves. We all just want to be loved for who we are and be able to show all of our ways and thoughts and feelings and everything that we represent in this world. And when we find someone who lives that way, that's actually a proof to our subconscious that it is safe. If that person can be that way, like maybe I can be that way. And that's why it's so beautiful. That's why it's so important to encourage everyone to just be a little bit more authentic every day, because that will create a ripple effect like nothing else.
Absolutely. And things are going to start changing. And we sometimes think that negativity is so contagious, but so is the light. It's like once you feel it, once you experience it, it's impossible to look away.
Beautiful.
Thank you again for listening. Subscribe and stay up to date with new episodes. We would love to hear from you and even help guide you on your path. You will see how to contact us in the notes for each episode, or simply leave a comment. Wishing you many blessings and a life lived with purpose.